None of the potential housekeepers Lady Cynthia's aunt had interviewed had taken the post, so many now that I feared the agencies would stop sending them altogether. Therefore the butler, Mr. Davis, and I struggled to do the housekeeping duties as well as her own. So, of course, Mary chose this very time to run away and leave us. But I could not worry about that at present. At this moment, I had to save the feast. I at last convinced the footman to cease trying to put the roast blackened pig back onto the platter and to run up to the dining room to receive the 2 capons laden with carrots and greens I'd lifted into the dumb waiter. The downstairs maid cranked the lift upward, while I got on with chopping the parsnips Elsie had scrubbed and thrusting them into already boiling water. A quarter of an hour in, and they'd be soft enough to brown with onions and carrots and adorn the mutton. A sauce of mint and lemon would accompany the meat, and the meal would finish with various sweet treats. Those, at least, I'd made well in advance. They already waited upstairs on a sideboard. A raspberry tart with chocolate film on its crust, a lemon and blueberry custard, ices in bright fruit flavours, a platter of fine cheeses, a chocolate gâteau piled with cream, and a syllabub. Syllabub was a rather old-fashioned dish, but as it was full of sherry and brandy, I could not wonder that ladies and gentlemen of London still enjoyed it. I was halfway through preparing the mutton, perspiration dripping down my neck and soaking my collar, when Mr. Davis appeared in the kitchen doorway. Mr. Davis had been butler to Lady Cynthia's brother-in-law, Lord Rankin, for years, and could be haughty as you please above stairs. Below stairs, he dropped his toffee-nosed accent, sat about in his shirt-sleeves and gossiped like an old biddy. This evening, he was in his full butler's kit, his eyes wide with consternation, the hairpiece he wore to cover his thinning hair on top askew. "Mrs. Holloway." His horrified gaze took in the skinless pig on the floor in a spreading puddle of spice sauce, and 2 maids at the table chopping vegetables as though their lives depended upon it. One was the downstairs maid who'd helped send up the capons, the other the upstairs maid, Sarah. I'd laid my hands on her and dragged her in to help when she'd been unwise enough to come down to the kitchen in search of something to eat. "What the devil has happened?" Mr. Davies demanded. "I announced the pièce de résistance to Mr. and Mrs. Bywater and Lady Cynthia and all their guests, which include His Grace of Guildford and the Bishop of Dorset, I might add, and I uncover 2 chickens, the same as their Saturday lunch at home." I did not bother to look up after one hasty and irritated glance at him. "It is perfectly obvious what happened. Your footmen are clumsy fools, and I'll thank you not to compare my blanquette de poulet à l'estragon to a Saturday lunch. They will find them tender and declare the fowl the best they've had in years. Now, unless you wish to don an apron and peel carrots, you may leave my kitchen." When he only stood in the middle of the floor, his mouth open, I took up the paring knife that lay next to me. "At once, Mr. Davis." I'd only intended to hand him the knife and tell him to get on with the carrots if he continued to stare at me, but Mr. Davis eyed the blade, took a hasty step back, and then scuttled away, nearly tripping over the mountain of pig in his haste. How we finished the meal I have no recollection. Somehow the 2 maids and I had the vegetables peeled, chopped, sautéed and seasoned, the mutton sauced and presented quite prettily, and everything hauled upstairs via the dumbwaiter. Zara, who had at first resented mightily that I'd recruited her for kitchen duty, beamed as the last of the food went up, and impulsively hugged the downstairs maid. Sarah looked as though she wished to embrace me, but I stepped out of her reach before she could give in to the impulse. "I'll never doubt you again, Mrs. Holloway," Sarah said. "You worked a miracle, like a general you are." I abandoned the kitchen, letting the footman clean up the remains of the roast pig, which I knew they'd devour or rush it home to their families as soon as I was out of sight, if I wasn't in the room to see it go.